Good, and it looks
Okay, we are now recording.
okay. Hello, this is the Amherst Energy and Climate Action Committee, or the ECAC, which was organized to guide the town in meeting its climate mitigation and resilience goals. Those goals and the plan for getting there are adopted from the Climate Action Adaptation and Resilience Plan, or the CARP, which we frequently refer to in these meetings. CARP was accepted by the town council in 2021. It takes 2016 as its base year and calls for a 25% reduction in carbon emissions by 2025, 50% by 2030, and neutrality by 2050. So this committee has two functions. This is my beginning of every meeting reminder that there are two things we do. One is to advise the town council and recommend or propose policies and actions that will help us meet those goals. And the other thing that we do is to promote a just, equitable, and speedy climate response through outreach and engagement. So those are our two things: advice and policy, outreach and engagement. The beginning of our agenda always starts with a review and vote from the minutes, and vote on the minutes. But today I want to take a moment just to introduce our new member, Tetsuya Tanaka. Maybe Tetsuya, if you want to tell us a little about yourself, we'll go around and all introduce ourselves briefly as well. Welcome to ECAC.
Sorry, Lori, just to jump in real quick, do you want to assign a minute taker?
Oh, right, we need a minute taker. Do we have a volunteer? Who hasn't done it in a while?
Michael, you're talking, but we're not hearing you.
We're not hearing you, Michael. Meanwhile, do we have a minute taker? Somebody else like to volunteer? Who did it last week?
Emily.
Did Emily?
I got the sense, Michael, that you were trying to volunteer. You could just give us a thumbs up. You're muted. Yeah, you keep sort of getting muted and then
Unmuted.
Unmuted. I don't know if you're hitting a toggle or something, but
usually if you hit the, there you go, you're unmuted. Try that. No, we still can't hear you.
It's probably interaction with his headphones.
Yeah. All right. So we must solve this problem.
But you can hear us, correct? So are you good to take minutes?
Okay, so Michael,
minutes.
Go ahead. Will you be able to fix that issue, you think? Take a few minutes to try to fix it.
Should.
Oh, there.
Oh, we just heard you.
We heard you.
So I didn't change anything.
You have ghosts.
I don't know. I was gonna say it worked like 30 minutes ago. I don't know what's wrong.
All right, Michael will be our minute taker. Let's move on. So go ahead, Tetsuya, tell us a little about yourself, and welcome to ECAC, and we'll go around and introduce ourselves as well.
Hi, my name is Tetsuya. I'm sorry for the late joining, but I'm a sophomore at Amherst College, and I'm originally from Japan and China, so I'm an international student here. And in terms of I'm majoring in computer science and political science, and my kind of like my sustainability background is when I was working at my high school as my sustainability committee president, and also leading some like national organization for environmental thing for high schooler. And I just want to continue that journey at Amherst, but more in a municipal level rather than just like in the school. But yeah, nice to meet you.
Thanks, Tetsuya. So I'll just say I'm Lori Goldner. I'm the current chair of the ECAC. I'm a retired physics faculty at UMass Amherst with a long and abiding interest in the environment and sustainability, and I'm also a heat pump coach now. So if anybody out there listening needs help with their decisions about electrifying their home, they can contact me. Don, I'll just call on someone else. Don?
Sure. Tetsuya, I'm a lawyer. I've lived in Amherst since 1988, moved up here from Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, my legal experience connected to the environment was representing General Electric and, power plants and that sort of thing. But I learned a lot doing that, actually. And my wife and I live here. We have 4 kids and they're grown and we like it. So.
And I'll just call on people. Michael, you want to go? Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Seriously?
No,
Yeah,
we
now
got
he
you, we
works.
got you. Go
It's
ahead.
in and out. It comes in and
Keep
out.
talking.
Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Michael. I lived in Amherst for the last 5 years. I'm a mechanical engineer and work as like an energy efficiency consultant for commercial real estate, new construction and retrofit projects.
Excellent. Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily Dorr. I'm currently a postdoc at Harvard School of Public Health. I'm a social scientist. I just have like personal interest in the area, but I'm very new to the group. I think this is maybe my third or fourth meeting, so still learning a lot, and just hoping to contribute something good to Amherst. And I've lived here for a little over a year now. Nice to meet you.
Andrew, and then Stephanie.
Hey, I'm Andrew. I moved to Amherst in 2020. One of those Brooklyn people who moved out of the city, out of New York City, during the pandemic. And I'm a software engineer. And just like Emily, I don't have an environmental background, but I have a general interest in all things environmental in terms of policy. And yeah, it's great to be able to contribute in whatever way I can. Yeah, this group is really cool. And we cover a lot of really cool stuff, and we write really good letters.
To the editor. Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi again, Tetsuya. So I'm Stephanie Ciccarello. I'm the Director of Sustainability for the town and the staff liaison to the committee.
All right, so with that, we need to review the minutes and then we have a public comments period. So let's take a quick look at the minutes. Hopefully everybody reads these beforehand. They're usually fairly succinct. Where'd mine go? Oh, did I close them? No, there they are. I sent one correction. Here they are. I will share my screen. Give me just a moment. I sent one correction to Stephanie because there was some stuff that had gotten a little garbled. Share. So I'll share that with you now. Okay, these were last week's minutes. Number 24, that sounds right, or 2 weeks ago. Reviewed the minutes, there was no public comment. Elevate event. We'll do more with education series planning today. So there's not too much there. There's a little more here. So if anyone has any concerns or changes, speak up now. I'll just keep scrolling through. Okay, I have one thing down here. This was a little bit garbled in that the local group that I'm participating in too many groups and they got mixed up. So whether that was my fault or, it doesn't matter. I suggested just taking out the stuff with that names the different groups and leave it as and add this here, since they are not, let me try to highlight it. This thing, I added that. Since they are not following their original plan to decarbonize by 2032, UMass has no climate plan. Local stakeholders have encouraged UMass to develop a new plan. So I had requested that if any of you had ideas for universities that had a good climate plan, please, a good example of a climate plan, please send it to me. And Stephanie had suggested UNH. So the rest of this is fine, but the stuff in red here is a little bit garbled. The decarbonization subcommittee at UMass is charged with making a plan, but we have neither. I'm on both. I'm on that as well as on a group of local stakeholders, as well as on the ECAC, as well as on an advisory committee of faculty to the decarbonization subcommittee. So I'm on all these different groups and trying to figure out whose message needs to go where. It's sort of part of what I'm doing. So without naming a lot of different names. That was, I think, the important thing. And then I did collect a bunch of different plans and passed them on to UMass. I did not draft an annual report yet. That'll have to wait till next week. So if there's anything else here, if not, we're looking for a move to accept the minutes with the changes or not. And a second, and then we take a vote on accepting the minutes.
I'll move to accept or adopt the minutes
With the changes.
with the changes as edited.
As edited, okay. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, and with that, I'm gonna stop sharing. Uh-oh, I lost the sharing thing again. Oh no, I hate when that happens. I'm just gonna have to close this and then it'll stop sharing. There we go. It stopped sharing, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
We're not looking at it anymore. Okay, so I need a voice vote. Tetsuya, I'm just going to recommend that you abstain because even though you watched the video of the meeting, I'm not sure you were signed in or I'm sorry, sworn in at that point. So probably best to abstain for this one. Okay. All right. Allison,
Yes.
Leinung,
Yes.
Issing,
Yes.
Goldner,
Yes.
Dorr,
Yes.
and Tanaka.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
so the next thing we always do is to ask if there are any comments from the public. So we have 3 attendees. If any of you would like to make a comment to the ECAC, raise your virtual hand and we should be able to see you. If not, and you're here for the presentation on heat pumps, that starts at 6:30. So you're welcome to stay. But if, you know, if our deliberations get boring, just come back at 6:30. I don't see any hands raised, so in that case, we will go on with our agenda. Okay, let's see. The next thing on the agenda was going to be the Elevate event, but Tony is not here today. So we go on to education series planning. So I did make a PDF of the series of the education series. Unfortunately, I only sent that to Stephanie today. So I will once again share the spreadsheet and let's talk about this a little bit. So one thing, so this is ECAC has at various points in the last few years put together series put together one or more educational seminars, and I felt a little bad that this one got advertised so late, so I don't want that to happen again. So I'm thinking that we do have another one planned for next week, and I think that's already on the schedule and we already have a flyer for it. But any others, I want to make sure that we have somebody, before we even start the discussion of what we should do, I want to make sure that we have somebody who will be the proponent for that education, for that particular presentation, that webinar, which mostly means that you put together a flyer we can send around. It only takes a few minutes, but it's a nice thing to do. And Stephanie doesn't have time to do all of that herself. And in the last set, we all did our own. For whichever education series whichever educational webinar we were most invested in, we had the most interest in. So folks on ECAC, you know, you should do what you're interested in, follow your interests. But that's what we will ask you to do if you want to see a particular webinar in place. And let's plan, at this point, we would be planning probably for January. We already have one possibility for January on solar energy. And I think that's a good time. Let's not try to get in the middle of the holidays. So November, December gets a little crazy and people get busy. So let's take a look at the, let me just find the, give me one moment to bring this up. Where'd it go? I just had it, and now of course I can't find it. Give me one moment and I will find the, there it is. No, that's not it. I just had it up here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Education series ideas. Let me go ahead and share this. You should also have a PDF of this. I believe Stephanie sent it out just before the meeting. So that'll go into the folder, into the, what do you call it? There's a online file that contains all the materials from our meeting so the public can see them. Let me go ahead and share this. Share there. Okay, good. Kill this and this. All right, so there we go. These were the sorts of things we were thinking of, right? We had, we sort of divided it into a couple different themes. One were individual actions that residents can do. So this is mostly what we've done in the past. Informational stuff on heat pumps and mass save, how to buy an EV, stuff like that. So there's a bunch of ideas. One of them that looks like it will happen would be on community solar. I think there's actually, let's see, where was the, there was a suggestion that I think it was in the minutes, right? That was it PV squared? I think Steve had the suggestion that PV squared give a, oh, solar, here it is. Northeast PV solar, that's right. Steve Roof was going to reach out to PV squared about solar, and then we also had questions about community. Sorry, two different things. PV squared. Steve was going to reach out to PV squared about people who are interested in getting solar on their roofs, and doing another webinar on that. But there was also this question of demystifying community solar. Community solar is something a lot of us buy into, but how they bill and what exactly they do and how much it's going to save you is always a bit of a mystery. And if they get it wrong, it can backfire. So this was something that we thought folks would appreciate. If you do it right, it can save you 10 to 15% on your electric bill, which is not nothing. So that was something that I'm actually sort of interested in that. So I might follow up on that one. Steve was going to follow up on solar. We also had the suggestion, another theme for these webinars would be encouraging activism. Some of this was based on bills that are currently circulating through the Massachusetts legislature, like making the fossil fuel companies pay. There's a Superfund bill right now. Why are electricity rates so high? There was a question of nuclear power. Renewable fuel policy for Massachusetts. And then there were factual sorts of seminars that are just get the facts out there. Things like nuclear power and small modular reactors, so-called renewable fuels, offshore wind. I did a Barstow farm tour this summer and invited folks who wanted to come along. So maybe I should take that off the agenda now, the list now. But we also talked about getting a tour of the UMass power plant, since that is the biggest polluter in the valley. And they have no plans to decommission it anytime soon. So those are some of the things that we had. I was hoping to get input from you guys. What are folks interested in?
Are you looking for new suggestions or like upvotes for existing
Upvotes,
ones?
both.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think the community solar one is good. I liked the trash one. I don't know if that is something that is still on the
Right.
table.
Zero waste. Yeah.
So Yeah, I talked to
zero waste, yeah.
Darcy about that, and it might not hurt to have, I think that would be fairly quick, but it might not hurt to have a little bit of a discussion about how Amherst currently deals with trash
Mhm.
and what it could be doing. So where was that? That was under here. So
Yeah.
I'll put a little yellow in that too. Where's the paint format? Is that it? Oh, here it is. I think that's what I want. Yeah, there it is. So we got a couple upvotes on that.
Does that include recycling too, or just trash?
Yeah, also recycling. The
Okay.
And composting.
Yeah.
and composting. Yeah, there's a little bit of a history here, which is that right now, folks in Amherst all contract for their own trash removal, or they buy a ticket to the sticker so they can get into the transfer station.
Mhm.
Transfer station takes compost. USA Recycle, which is almost a monopoly in town, as a someone you can contract with to take your trash, they will also do compost, but they charge more for it, and they're already quite expensive compared to the price of trash removal when we had half a dozen companies all servicing Amherst. So there is currently a effort in the town to and I think there's even an RFP out, a request for proposals for trash pickup townwide that includes rental properties, which is a big deal, and includes compost. It's a pay as you throw sort of thing. The more trash you generate, the more you pay. You don't generate a lot of trash, you don't pay much, and they would take compost and recycling as well. It's hard to figure out how to implement that for a big apartment complex, for example, where everybody's throwing things in a dumpster. But I think that was part of the idea, was to try to figure that out. So that is definitely something we could have. Darcy would be the obvious person, I think, to talk about that, or somebody from Local Energy Advocates.
Yeah, and the way it ties back to the environment is typically when towns, or there is an example of when towns adopt this, you generate a lot less trash because you're incentivizing less throwaway, and also composting generates a lot less trash.
Yeah.
Since composting can be repurposed a lot better than raw trash. So it's good for the environment.
If you use the transfer station directly, it's sort of a pay as you throw, because they sell you a blue bag, right, for $3, and you fill the bag. Once you fill the bag, you bring it to the dump. So it's $3 a bag, right? The less you generate, the less you pay. So there's a little bit of that. And then compost and recycling doesn't cost you anything. Just the price of the yearly sticker, which is something like a third of what it costs to contract with USA Recycling.
Yeah.
Does anybody feel like they want to take the lead on one of these? I can, for example, if you want to take the lead on the trash thing, I can put you in contact with Darcy, and maybe you guys can.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm happy to
Okay,
talk to
cool.
whoever I need to.
All right, so I will put you down, Andrew.
Point me in the right direction.
Okay, so I want to make sure that makes it into the minutes that I am to connect Andrew to the pay-as-you-throw folks, Zero Waste Amherst folks. For sometime in January, talk about that. I can, this thing I'd like to do, but I honestly don't know where to start for that. So if anybody has I wouldn't mind doing it, or somebody else wants to, or knows where to start for community solar. I mean, I would probably just go on to do a web search. I know there are community solar webinars, I think, on the Mass Save website or something like that. I know I've seen them somewhere, maybe Energy Sage. But if anybody has a in on that, otherwise I'll try to find it. And I think this is probably Steve.
Yeah, do you think Steve with PV Squared or PV Squared would have kind of the information we'd be wanting to learn about
They
in
would
terms of
have it,
community solar?
they would have it for putting solar on your roof, but community solar is different from community-owned solar. And I suspect that what PV Squared does is more like community-owned solar, if they do any community.
Right. Okay.
Community solar is, some power company puts up a big solar plant somewhere and you buy a piece of it,
Right.
and you're buying a share of it. Community solar, the community actually owns. It's a much bigger boon.
Laurie, I might suggest too that we might want to actually see if there's communities that have community solar and get a perspective from the community as well
Like-
as the
Like
solar developer
a community
that
owned.
has, yeah. And I could reach out to my network as an additional contact.
Yeah. Does anyone know a town owned solar, which is, like I say, a slightly different thing? Maybe we can talk about that too. I've often thought one of the open spaces in my neighborhood might be dedicated to a small community-owned solar array that would save us all money, but I don't really know anything about it, so. All right, so Stephanie, I'll put you down here as also as helping to find out who to talk to. All right. Is there anything else anyone else have an interest? That's a good
Interest
start.
around. Yeah, I think that's a really good start. I mean, I guess as backup, I feel like there's an interest around like we have like 3 colleges in town. Like, and obviously UMass is the biggest one. So kind of almost like trying to compare and contrast the different sustainability plans between like the 3 colleges. I know they're different sizes, but
Yeah.
in terms of like what is Amherst College doing? What does Hampshire College do? And what does UMass do? I think that could be like a cool compare
That'd be cool.
contrast kind of idea, and that might be obviously more than one like education, like more than one time slot.
So this is, what are the local colleges doing? Sustainability plans in Amherst.
I think there's a consortium of those small colleges, Michael, Smith and Amherst. I don't know about Hampshire, but Williams, that are invested in an enormous solar array in Maine. I know there's some sort of massive agreement where they're buying power from that solar array.
It was interesting looking through
I
what,
guess,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was kind of thinking about like UMass has, what they're trying to do in terms of upgrade to their central plant. Like what does Amherst College, what's their sustainability plan around upgrading or going to kind of maybe, removing fossil fuels or going to like full electrification. Like I'm pretty sure they do stuff around like geothermal
Yeah.
on their campus, but I don't really have a great idea of like specific projects that they're doing.
Yeah, the smaller colleges generally don't have their own power plants.
Right.
That's the biggest.
Right.
So their job is a lot like all of ours, right? We're all transitioning our homes, our municipal buildings. And so their job.
It's more
looks a lot
relatable
like-
for us.
Yeah, it looks a lot like what we're familiar with, right? UMass is in its own. As I look around at other big universities' plans, I'm not seeing anything terribly hopeful, right? University of Maryland, for example, calls itself carbon zero because they've bought RECs for wind farms in Texas to make up for the fact that they have a central heat and power plant just like UMass's, which is really not helpful. And they call themselves carbon zero because they've bought RECs in Texas. And University of New Hampshire has a central heat and power plant, which currently burns biogas. They're very proud of that because it's renewable fuel. It's actually a renewable fuel. Problem is they lose access to it in 2029. So what are they going to replace it with? There is nothing that they can replace it with that is reasonable. So they have the same problem. So that all of these places have this problem of what to do with their central heat and power plant, and none of them have solved it. UMass is hoping for a miracle in the way of either geothermal, deep geothermal power, or a small nuclear reactor. You know, they're hoping for some sort of miracle to occur. They're at this point, they have no plans to decommission. So it would be interesting to hear what the small colleges are doing, because I think they're more like what we're doing, but it might be pretty depressing to hear what what the bigger ones are planning. But all right, I know that's a good idea. And yeah, Steve could probably talk. I think Steve put together Hampshire's plan. So maybe we should ask Steve about this. Can I put your name down?
Or maybe it's more like, what is, like, yes, we've created a plan. Now what are like the obstacles and success stories around, you know, after, you know, the couple years after that plan has been developed, kind of thing.
Right.
Laurie Smith is in the middle of a massive plan.
Yeah. They're putting in geothermal. They're putting in a huge geothermal.
Right. And they're doing it in segments throughout the campus.
Right.
And one segment's been online for a while, and they're close to putting the second segment online.
Yeah. That was UMass's original plan too.
Mount Holyoke was going to do it too. I don't know if they still are, but they were going to build their plant right on 116, right next to All Saints Church, right near the Common. I just don't know if they're still doing that. But it was going to be a big geothermal facility.
Okay, let me see what else. I'm thinking that it is 6:07 and we have a few other things on the agenda. And I know at 6:15 we want to let Steve, if Steve gets here, we want to let him talk about the solar, what was it, the overdraft of the clean energy siting and permitting regulations that came out of the DOER.
Right. Yeah.
So how about we move on now? We have a couple of good things here, and we'll continue to talk about this next time and make some more plans. All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing if I can find the, I don't know why it keeps disappearing. I just have to close the window. All right, it's closed. I can't find the stop sharing button when I share a screen. It disappears off the screen somewhere. So I have to close the window. Okay, onward. Next thing on the agenda is the annual report, which I did not have a chance to get to. So we're going to have to put that off till next week too. Stephanie, just keep it on the agenda in the same place. And then we're on to our education and outreach stuff, which we've been talking about, but let's see if there's anything else. There's the PACE program. Don, anything more? Nope.
Nothing.
Okay. Coordination with local groups. Tony's not here, but I'm continuing to meet with a bunch of local stakeholders about the UMass plan. Don't really have too much more to say about that. Heat pumps. I don't have a lot more to add, but we have a lot more at 6:30 today. So we'll wait till then to hear more about the heat pump program and the education series we already talked about. So on to advisory and support. Okay, so the first thing under that is the UMass climate plan, and I just figured I'd give you guys a little bit of an update. We did have a meeting at which we brought, to get the details of this probably shouldn't be in the minutes. The main thing is that I'm continuing to serve on the decarbonization subcommittee at UMass. I think we have convinced them that they need a plan. They seem willing to put some money into that, into making a new plan. And now it's going to be mostly a matter of trying to get them to be transparent about what they're doing and how they're doing it, because so far they have really failed in that regard. I mean, they tell us of decisions after they're made. They don't involve the committee that's supposed to be involved in making this plan in any of their decisions. They just, if we ask, they'll tell us what they did. Otherwise, it's a big black box. They won't publish minutes. We asked last week that they please publish their minutes. They had a note taker there, but they don't want to publish minutes. They don't want to record the meeting. It is the diametrical opposite of this group. Everything is a big secret. And I don't know why, because they're working, the same problems that everybody else is working. And it would be helpful, I think, to everybody to see them work through this in an honest and transparent way. I'm trying to think if anything new came out last week that we didn't already know about. I don't think so. I think it was mostly just a discussion of principles and transparency and having a plan. So maybe that's finally headed in the right direction. Okay, Steve is going to give us an overview when he gets here. So I'll skip, well, that's separate on the agenda anyway. If anyone has any questions, I should have asked if there are any questions about that UMass climate plan.
I am wondering about how that works with what Michael was suggesting about like talking about the different plans that each of the colleges have. Like, would that help if they knew that that was happening? Would that put pressure on them to like be more transparent, or
they
like,
know?
I don't know the politics involved, and I don't know how messy it is, but
UMass is well aware of what the other colleges are doing, and under the previous chancellor, they were very dedicated to working on an accelerated schedule. The previous chancellor was extremely excited about the prospect of transitioning the campus as soon as possible. And at the time, I think they had a $2 billion price tag, which they still thought might be doable. My understanding is now the price tag to actually convert the campus the way Smith is closer to $4 billion. And they, with everything else going on in the world, they don't see a way to do it. Now, that said, they had a 7% surplus last year, which is 4% more than they aimed for. They always aim for a little bit of a buffer. It amounts to a couple $100 million. So you would think that they would have, I think it was a couple $100 million or more. You'd think they'd have at least some money to put into a transition. If they are, they are doing things. They are required as they retrofit buildings to convert them to electric. So they are putting in heat pumps slowly on all the residence halls over the next 20 years. They're all going to get renovated. They'll all become heat pump driven. But it's sort of a big black box because they're not making any of it. They're not saying what they did, and they're not saying what they plan to do. And their CO2 emissions keep going up. So that's as compared to Hampshire and Amherst College, and I'm sure Mount Holyoke as well. All these small colleges are transitioning and bringing their CO2 levels down pretty steadily as a result, or at least working toward that. Sometimes you have to do a lot of work, and then one day you flip a switch, and then all of a sudden the CO2 comes down. It takes a long time to convert a bunch of buildings to a geothermal system. But once you do it, you flip a switch and they're all on the grid instead of burning oil. So that's, UMass is doing a little of that, but not nearly enough. They're in a really different situation. They're well aware of what other places are doing. And it's part of the reason they're not doing anything, because they don't see other big universities doing anything serious.
Yeah, I was thinking more like if the public was aware of like the contrast, then that would put pressure on them. But if they just will say we're in a different situation, then yeah, maybe that's not helpful.
So Emily, that's the purpose of this local community group. So there's I'll say this again also for the attendees who are listening or anyone who watches this, there is a group of local stakeholders whose goal is to find ways to put pressure on UMass to transition to clean energy. And their principles include things like having a plan to decommission the power plant. Even if it's a 20-year long plan, they need a plan to do that. Other principles are things like honesty and transparency and scientifically based solutions and things like that. They have a list of about 5 principles they're working out of. And I participate in that group, and if there's anybody who's interested in participating, they should, contact me, or you can contact Stephanie, who'll put you in contact with me, and I can connect you up with that group. That group is particularly looking for, there are several faculty and Sunrise members that are on it. We'd love to have more community members and more alumni who are interested in that. So if you're a community member listening to this and you want to be involved in pressuring UMass to transition, that's the group to join. All right, so advisory and support, Tony, so Steve is coming, Tony does transportation, he's not here today. The only regional and state policy update I have, you should have gotten an email about the climate bank. So there is now a climate bank bill, or language anyway. It might get incorporated into one of the other bills that we've already talked about, like the bond bill, or the which was called.
I think we lost Lori for
Oh.
a sec.
We just lost Lori.
All right, we can, when she comes back, we'll tell her.
It might get a bill, but
You
they're
froze
expecting
for a
it in
minute.
November.
You
For
froze.
like 10 seconds.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says my internet is unstable, so I may disappear for a moment too. So what I was saying is that there is this bill. There is no date for the hearing yet, the climate bank bill, but it's expected to be mid-November. So I figured that a discussion of that, we might want to wait a little bit more until we hear what's needed for input. And then we can write a letter in support of the climate bank. So Massachusetts already has a climate bank. It's just not terribly well funded yet. And what this is, for anyone who doesn't know, is a public pot of money. Sometimes it's a public plus, not just public pot of money that people can access to finance climate solutions. So that sort of already exists here, but there's a bill to make it bigger and more official. So I will keep folks updated on that. So that's all I've got. Steve is not yet here.
Lori, if I could jump in real quick,
Mhm.
just in terms of an update for the solar bylaw, because Steve
Oh.
hasn't really been able to attend, and I actually do have an update.
Right.
The CRC Community Resources Committee, which is a subcommittee of the town council, will be taking it up again tomorrow. Their meeting is from 3 to 5 p.m. and they'll be covering the solar bylaw from 3 to 4. So essentially, they've just been working on the draft of the bylaw, and they're just going to continue that process. So it's a lot of digging in and wordsmithing and fine tuning and making decisions on what they want to include. So just that's the update for that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I did not make it to the last meeting, and neither did Steve. I hope he can do this one, but it sounds like it's just plowing through, trying to make it.
Come, Steve.
Steve's
Oh,
here.
there's Steve. Okay. Okay, good. So that brings us past the item 7 on the agenda, and up to 8, which is an overview of the draft DOER clean energy siting and permitting regulations. So Steve, welcome. You're on.
Hi. I don't have a lot to report. I'm still trying to digest all the guidance that came out just earlier this week. And I only got to attend part of one of the sessions. It was the other night. There's another session later tonight and another one tomorrow, or maybe the one's happening right now. So I don't have much. I don't know how much people know about these new regulations. Are people familiar at all with the new, what are becoming the new regulations for small scale clean energy development?
I know there are new regulations.
Okay. I'm kind of off the cuff here. These were established last year by a large Massachusetts bill that was passed and signed by the governor. This past year, DOER has been implementing them into some specific rules. And for small clean energy infrastructure. So that's less than 25 megawatts, which is actually pretty big. I don't think there's anything bigger than 25 megawatts in the state. It includes solar and wind and anaerobic digestion. These new rules allow the local municipalities, cities and towns to make decisions on the siting of these facilities, but they have to do it within 1 year, 12 months. If they don't, then the project will be approved by default, assuming all the application procedures are followed. And DOER is providing some resources that towns and cities and towns can use to help with that. The towns will have to, the local governments, cities or towns will have to implement a single decision within that 12 months. Within the local government, there could be the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and other things. Each of those groups will issue their own decision, and then someone designated with that local government will issue a final decision. But it has to be done within 12 months, or it will get automatically approved. Decisions can be appealed, and it will go to the Energy Facility Siting Board, which is a state agency is that under DOER? It's a state agency. That's the board that would deal with the bigger, greater than 25 megawatt facilities. And they also deal with bigger things like long distance power transmission lines. They just issued, so that's the overall framework, and DOER just on Monday this week issued a series of guides for helping the local communities, the local towns and cities make decisions. There'll be an updated model solar bylaw that communities may adopt. There will be guidance on there's going to be a scoring system for proposals. So when a proposal for a ground mount solar gets produced, it will get graded and given a score. And I haven't seen the metrics for that scoring yet. They may be in the guidance, those 4 or 5 guidance documents that were just released, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. So there'll be a series of criteria and sort of guidance. So overall, it'll be a faster process. And there will be a more uniform process for approving small scale renewable or clean energy facilities. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions, or maybe Stephanie has gotten more. If she was able to attend some of the information sessions, she might know more than I do.
I haven't been yet, Steve. I'm attending mine tomorrow.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think I signed up for one tomorrow too. The scoring, is that something that is that something a town must take into consideration, or are there rules about what a town can't do to, I worry about every solar project getting blocked by somebody complaining about it, right? Unless it's on a rooftop.
Right. Yeah. This would be for greater than 25 kilowatts and greater than 1 acre. So I believe that
kilowatts or megawatts?
Kilowatts. So
okay.
Smaller than 25 kilowatts is excluded from this DOER process and would happen the same way that they're doing now, smaller than 25. So that's a rooftop size system, 25 kilowatts or smaller, or it could be a very small ground mount on like a 1/4 acre. But projects
less than 25 megawatts, but larger than 25 kilowatts.
That's right. So yeah, less than 25 megawatts, greater than 25 kilowatts to fall under this new process. So that would exclude, for the most part, rooftop solar. And I don't know if a rooftop solar was greater than 25 kW or greater than 1 acre, where it would fall.
Yeah.
Or if it was a ground mount that was just slightly larger than 1 acre, I guess it would fall under this. I don't know about the scoring system. I did read that the applicant is supposed to make an initial determination of a score, and then it gets scored by a scoring entity, and that's where I haven't gotten to the details yet. That may be a DOER thing, and I'm not sure what goes into the score, but I think it's a site suitability, at least in part. So it might take into account factors like how much what's the value of the ecosystem? What's the amount of carbon already stored in the soil? And those things would negatively impact the sort of the suitability score.
Right, that makes sense.
Previously used sites or brownfields or those sorts of things would probably improve the score.
Yeah, of course. And those also make it eligible for more incentives as well.
Yeah. So in some ways, in the presentation part that I saw the other night, they kind of compare this to the way the wetlands regulations are managed throughout the states. There's a single form, a state issued form that anybody who's going to be doing work in or near a wetland has to fill out. So it's a uniform application process. It's still judged by the local conservation commissions, but there's oversight, in this case by DEP. DEP also provides what they call circuit riders, which are not judges, but experts that go from town to town, presumably on horseback, like the old-fashioned circuit riders, and you can help a town or a community with some of the more complicated or thorny issues, or just help a town if they don't have the resources to make those. So there's resources for towns. I believe there's resources too for impacted people if they don't have their own resources. I thought there was going to be some resources made available to them to sort of help mount an appeal or hire experts if they wanted to or needed to.
Right.
Those are some of the details that I haven't gotten to yet. I also don't know what happens once, for example, oftentimes projects are modified in, of course, the conversations with the Conservation Commission or the Planning Board. There's a give and take, and maybe the boundaries are modified after the wetlands are discussed, or maybe the Conservation Commission allows or doesn't allow something in a buffer zone. I don't know how that's going to work in this case. That hasn't come up in what I've read. It's on my list of questions to ask if I get a chance.
All right. Other questions for Steve?
Overall, the whole intent is to make the process faster and more uniform. So for developers, it's the same process in every one of the 351 communities across Massachusetts, whereas now there's 340 different processes and sets of rules that they have to follow. But it looks like they're keeping many of the same guidelines in place in terms of certainly wetland protections. Wetlands can't be developed. And certainly, I think the scoring system that many communities have favored is implemented in there somewhere, somehow.
Good. All right, if there are no further questions, we have 3 minutes until 6:30. Stephanie, you want to give a staff update?
Just a really,
Yeah,
sure, just a really quick one. I don't think that I had attended the decarbonization hearing before our last meeting. So that was held at UMass. Climate Chief Melissa Hoffer was there, and some others from the State Decarbonization Board Committee. It was interesting. There were some developers that were presenting. Tom Hartman from Coldman and Hartman Architects presented. There were also a few others from town who had provided testimony for that hearing. I did speak to the climate chief after the meeting to give some thoughts. There weren't many people there, so I was really fortunate to be able to have some one-on-one time with her. So just gave some of my own sort of personal feedback on the regulations and processes. I think what I gathered from the sort of architectural community, twofold is that people want more, stronger decarbonization regs, but the way that the state has implemented them with the stretch code has been somewhat problematic. In terms of permitting and for some developers, and they are also saying that sort of they exist somewhere other than the actual building code. And so there was some discussion about whether some of these regulations should actually be part of the building code versus in other places. So that was kind of an very interesting conversation. So those are some of the things they're mulling over.
What meeting was that again?
That was the hearing on building decarbonization regulations. That was I think what day? It was right after or the day before the USGBC meeting in Boston. Let's see. I don't know, it was like a week or two ago.
It was
But
in.
the
it was-
hearing was held at UMass.
I didn't
So
even
it
hear
was
about
one
this.
of the state hearings. I think it was all, I think we had access. I think it was shared. There's just so much of this stuff going on right now. I
It
think
just,
it's hard to keep up.
all
So,
right. Then with that, I'm not going to ask for any more questions because we are at 6:30. So Stephanie, would you like to introduce Rusty?
sure, more than happy to. So, yeah, I'd like to introduce Rusty Daniels is now one of our new project management team members that's working with the town on this heat pump program. Marina Galen has moved on from CET, so we now have Rusty and Simon, who I don't know if Simon is here with us as well, but um, Simon will also be working with us, and Rusty is going to give us a presentation that's going to be a little more focused on the program itself this time versus the heat pump technology itself. Little overview, but more on the program. So with that, I will just let Rusty introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I'll try to keep it brief and just real quick, how many of you are familiar with this program or know about it? Okay, everybody kind of knows about a little bit. Okay, cool. So I'll try to dive into it as much as I can.
There are
And
realize that there are us 9 panelists are all on the Energy and Climate Action Committee. There are
yes,
also
I knew that.
there are also 3 attendees who are here specifically to learn about it. So there's at least
Okay, I did not know that. So there we go. Awesome. Hello, 3 attendees. So I will hopefully I can answer some questions. And if you guys have any, there's my colleague Simon. We'll give Simon a moment to join and get all settled in. So hello, Simon. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share the presentation, and hopefully this is going to work like I want it to. Here we go. Okay. Can you guys see this here?
And for the attendees, there will be a Q&A afterwards.
Yes, we
Okay.
can see it, Rusty.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great. Welcome. So I'm Rusty, as I was introduced by Stephanie. Thank you for having me here. We're just going to dive into the town's heat pump incentive program and talk a little bit about that. So, slide. Okay, perfect. So brief introduction on CET. We're an environmental nonprofit. We've been working in Western Massachusetts for over 50 years. Our mission is decarbonization, and we do that through energy efficiency programs and waste reduction programs. We have over 60 different programs that we administer. That's everything from commercial to residential energy and commercial waste reduction. And we work closely with the Mass Save program as well. We work closely with Mass DEP on the Recycling Works program and a bunch of other organizations across the Commonwealth. So we've been doing it for over 50 years, and decarbonization is the name of the game. So that's what we do. So we're going to dive right in. So why consider a heat pump? Heat pumps can save money because it can reduce your heating and cooling costs with a high efficiency technology. It's good to stay comfortable year round. So, no more window units and loud window units, and you can enjoy the reliable heat of winter and air conditioning in the summer. So, big difference there with heat pumps. And it's really just it helps lower personal carbon footprint to support the town of Amherst sustainability goals. So, not relying on fossil fuel to heat your home. So just a brief intro on what a heat pump is. An air source heat pump is an energy efficient electric system that transfers heat between the indoor air and the outside air. And that's to provide both, like I said, heating and cooling. Here's a brief example of how cold air flows in during the winter and then hot air is expelled during the summer. So it's basically going kind of like that. So a good example is like a refrigerator, right? So inside the refrigerator it's cold, but behind the refrigerator it's warm, right? So underneath you feel that hot air that comes out. So what it's doing, it's moving the warm air from inside and blowing it outside, right? So that's why the warm air is outside the refrigerator. So a heat pump is very similar to that. It's basically like a reversing valve to keep the inside warm air in the winter in your home. It's the same technology as a heat pump, just bigger, and it's just applied to homes and living spaces. So that's essentially kind of how that technology works. So it's a one system climate control solution. Air source heat pumps offer both heating and cooling, functioning as a complete climate control solution in one system. It also offers dehumidification, which is a big one here in New England. So they really are three systems in one. Most people have fossil fuel heating systems and to heat their home and have to lug around window AC units to keep cool in the summer. Everybody loves putting those giant things in your window. So with heat pumps, the added benefit is that it's one system able to provide heating, cooling, and air dehumidification. And it's way more efficient in cooling than a conventional central air conditioning system. On most days in the summer, folks can just set it to dry mode, which is what I do in my home. And it's really dehumidification mode, and it stays comfortable without running it in cooling mode. So a lot of times in the summer, you set it to dry with a fan. It's nice and cool in your house, so you're actually not running a lot of energy to cool your home off. There we go. So yes. So basically, I jumped ahead a bunch of slides. 1 second here. Sorry. There we go. Boom. Okay. So we're going to talk about who can participate. So any homeowner in Amherst is eligible. The way it works is you start off with a home energy assessment through Mass Save or a similar program. If recommended, you complete the weatherization work first to maximize efficiency. Obviously, if your insulation and things aren't up to standard, having a heat pump and it's not going to provide that necessarily as efficient as it could be. So weatherization work is obviously recommended. Some homes have already had that. So how the Amherst Heat Pump Incentive Program helps the homeowner. So it makes it easier and more affordable for Amherst homeowners to upgrade to a heat pump system. So it's up to $3,500 in financial incentives to cover installation costs. CET will provide guidance. Our technical experts will find the best heat pump system for their home. Support with contractor selection and quotes, so you feel confident in your investment. And then we also have assistance in navigating additional incentives, including Mass Save rebates. So it works in tandem with those incentives and rebates. So how you would get started is once you've completed your home energy assessment and necessary weatherization work, you schedule a no-cost heat pump load calculation assessment with CET to determine the right size heat pump for your home. And then find a contractor and get assistance through CET with reviewing quotes to make the most important decision. So to make sure that the right heat pump. There is other kinds of heat pumps other than air source. Air source is the most common when you think of like a mini split. That's the most common. There is ground source heat pumps, which the air comes from the ground. Those are typically a lot bigger job, a little more expensive, and there's a couple other types of heat pumps too. The most typical one is air source, so that's where we're going to stick with today. And then move forward with the installation by selecting a contractor and scheduling that work. And then you maximize your savings by tapping into other available rebates and incentives, and then you get to enjoy year-round comfort with your new efficient heat pump system. So we'll dive into a little bit of the benefits of that. Some of it we've tapped into already, but we'll talk about these a little bit more. So heat pumps are great in Massachusetts because obviously they are a lower carbon emission choice. Depending on the fuel source, heat pumps can cut related carbon emissions by 30 to 60%. So whether you're on natural gas or oil. Upfront cost savings, so generous rebates and incentives like the Mass Save program and financing options are available. Potential savings with solar. So when you pair it with solar power, all customers have the potential to increase their energy savings because you're not drawing that necessary electricity from, off the grid. You can, supplement that with solar. Enhanced comfort, like we talked about. The improved cooling comfort is likely, and improved heating comfort is possible with thoughtful design. I know in my home, it's amazing. And I went, actually, this is the first summer I've used a heat pump to cool my house rather than the big AC. Made a huge difference. The dry mode with the fan is the way to go. And I was cool all summer, and my bill has actually been very, very reasonable. A huge decrease, actually, from last year, if you can see where I was at. So it worked really well for me. So this is a little blurry, but this is the annual average CO2 emissions in degrees. So this kind of breaks down a chart of what it looks like from propane to air source heat pump, as you can to efficiency and sort of what it costs. How much energy you're using. So as you can see, the ground source heat pump uses very little energy. Air source is right above that, and as you go up, the electrical resistance is to heat your home is the very least as efficient, right there with oil. So again, the idea behind this program is to get homeowners off of that fossil fuel reliance and to more efficient systems. And the trade-off for that is decarbonization. So space heating in the summer is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon impact in a residential setting. Electrifying your heating load greatly reduces your carbon impact in your home. So no getting off of that gas and getting off of the oil or propane. So energy efficiency and cost savings. So air source heat pumps use less electricity than traditional heating systems, often providing 3 to 4 times more energy than they consume, making them highly efficient. While the upfront cost can be slightly higher, the air source heat pumps save on energy bills over time. Definitely does, due to their high efficiency, especially with available rebates and incentives. Yeah, I think this summer my electric bill from my AC was, I would say, at least 40% less from last year using this to cool my house. So I was very happy with that. So heat pump cost savings, oil systems to heat pump oil. If you're converting off of an oil system to a heat pump, an average saving is about $1,200 per year. Natural gas systems to heat pumps save about $500 a year. So from switching from those systems, you can really save money. So natural gas is a bit more competitive with heat pumps, but switching to heat pumps still yields some savings. And there's a greater carbon impact reduction when you switch from natural gas to heat pump. So for some people, it's not necessarily about dollars. It's about the impact on their carbon footprint. That's a big motivating factor, which is why, the town, to meet the sustainability goals, is offering this generous incentive for homeowners. So we'll go over some common criticisms and some other counterpoints that we often hear in the field with people and heat pumps, and just kind of dive into that for a second here. Limited heating capacity. So the argument is air source heat pumps struggle to fully heat large homes, especially in colder climates, potentially requiring backup systems. So a counterpoint argument to that is if it's properly sized, cold climate rating systems can provide adequate heat with or without an auxiliary system. So that's a big common one. People, especially coming off of natural gas, that's a big common one we have. But if it's properly sized and the home is properly weatherized, it will be adequate enough to heat. So the key is, like I said, proper sizing. That's why the manual J-load calculation is super important. That's what CET provides. It takes into account the square foot of the home, all the different components of the building, whether it's windows, wall insulation, attic and basement insulation values, calculates the heating and cooling load of the home. And then it tells us us and your HVAC technician, the homeowner, of how much heating and cooling your home needs. And then they can select the right equipment that's a good fit for the home. Without the manual J-load calculations, the HVAC technicians are just guessing, and a lot of times they get that wrong. So having that manual J is super important. So here's a couple other ones. Efficiency in cold weather. So argument is that the air source heat pumps lose efficiency when temperatures drop below freezing, making them less effective in cold climates. The counterpoint is most of these air source heat pump systems are now designed to function efficiently even in sub-zero temperatures. So cold climate heat pumps can operate as effectively as temperatures as low as 13 degrees below. Proper sizing and insulation is obviously key to this as well, is making your home energy efficient. So 13, let's hope we don't see that this winter, the 13 degrees below Fahrenheit. Some can go even low as 22, so depending on the right system. So below 22, which I don't think I've ever seen below 22 degrees Fahrenheit in Massachusetts since I've lived here for 20 years. So aesthetics and space concerns people have. The outdoor unit and indoor wall-mounted systems are unsightly or take up too much space. Having one, it's really, I never notice it in the outdoor unit in the back of my house. It's small. It doesn't take up much space. It's super quiet. So a counterpoint to that is these newer designs are more compact and can be strategically installed in less visible areas. Mine is tucked right behind my house. Nobody can see it. It's great. Additionally, there are ducted air source heat pump systems that are available to integrate with existing infrastructure, minimize visual impact while still providing that efficient heating and cooling. So homes that have ducted work, you can hide behind, hide that stuff behind that. But the mini split system is, if you want just the unit, it's the indoor unit's pretty small. It's very, very quiet. Doesn't take up much room at all in the wall. So costs. There's a big argument that they're too costly to install compared to traditional systems. So the counterpoint to that is although they have an increased cost to install, which is why we have lovely incentives through Mass Save in the town of Amherst, there are rebates and incentives available that help offset that. So there is a greater CO2 reduction when compared to other system types. Operational costs can be very competitive with other fuel systems depending on the fuel cost, especially when paired with solar. So there's other heat pump incentives out there, like we've kind of mentioned. There's the Mass Save whole home heat pump rebate. That's $3,000 per ton, up to $10,000. That's big. There's also a Mass Save heat loan that's up to $25,000 at 0% interest for up to 7 years. Who is going to loan you 25 grand at 0%? I don't know of anybody. That's one of the best loans that you can find. So another great loan is the Energy Saver Home Loan Program, up to $100,000. It's a second mortgage loan, and most people qualify for 0.5%. So, and this program is actually really cool because it covers much more things. It covers windows and doors. It actually has a solar component to it, so it can cover some solar work. It covers a lot of different things that Mass Save doesn't cover, and that's up to $100,000. And even at the high cap, if you're in the higher income level of 2%, to do home improvements at a 2% interest rate is unheard of. That's great. So it's a 20-year loan, so it spreads out. A lot of people take advantage of that. And then there's also energy efficiency home improvement federal tax credits up to $2,000 for now. It does expire soon, so I think at the end of the year. Unfortunately, that's expiring, but if you hurry up, you might be able to make that. So here's some information about the program. So 5 installs completed so far for the Amherst Town program, 12 customer projects in process. We have capacity for 13 more installs for the program through the end date of November 26. 30 installs is what the program is supporting, and that's kind of what we're looking for. So we have basically room for another 13 more homes, and through this particular program. Once this program is exhausted, like I said, there is available incentives through the Energy Saver Home Loan Program, which is awesome, and that program does cover any available rebates and incentives that are available as well. So that would also be included in that loan. So there's lots of options to do this. So let's talk about which one might be right for you between the different types of heat pumps. So we'll just dive in briefly into the types of heat pumps that are available. So do you have existing ductwork? So if you do, then a ducted heat pump would be good. That's for homes without duct systems, with or poorly functioning ducts. You might think about doing a wall unit. So home size and layout makes a big difference. So ducted for large homes without specific zones. Ductless would be better for smaller homes when space and zoning needs come to issue. So there are some cases where a home could use a mix of ducted and ductless. For example, if there is existing ducts on the first floor of a cave-style home, but on the second floor it's electric baseboard heat, like mine, the heat pump could be ducted on the first floor and ductless on the second floor. So both configurations could be used in certain homes for better design and efficiencies. They're versatile and be configured in many different ways to distribute air around the home. So you can do sort of combination of those. So every home is unique, and in New England, homes are very old. My house is built in the 30s. There's houses that are 150 years old. So depending on a lot of those factors, which is why the energy efficiency audit is super important. Okay, so now we're going to open this up for questions. If anybody has any questions about this and any other outline questions, and we'd be happy to open that up.
Okay, I have some questions and comments, but I will take questions from attendees first. So if you're an
Perfect.
attendee and you have a question, please raise your hand. I will keep an eye out for that. I don't see any hands raised yet. Anyone in ECAC have a question before I start in?
I have some questions as well, Lori, just so I'll let
You
you go
want to
first.
start?
No, you go first.
Okay.
And also if attendees, I'll keep an eye on attendees, and if anyone who's watching, just raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak after Lori gives her.
Yeah, should be able to raise your hand with a click. All right, so I had a bit of a comment that my own experience is that ducted can be quite a lot less expensive to install when you're comparing to, you know, say you have a 3 tons of heat that you need in your home and you have, you know, 2 floors, so you might need multiple outdoor units to do it well. It's really, I think the better way of saying that is that per unit, per outdoor unit, it's more expensive to put in a ducted system, but overall,
Yeah.
it can actually be quite a lot less.
Yeah, and you're right, Lori. And every home is different, right? So it's like depending on like I said, some homes have ducted on the first floor, but not on the second
Right.
floor. So there's a lot of factors that contribute to that cost. But you are right. The out as far as the system itself, the outdoor unit is the actual part of the system that's doing the conversion. It is the most expensive component of the system. So
Yeah.
the more outdoor units that are required or needed, obviously the cost of
The cost goes up,
conversion
yeah.
goes up. Yes.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that the mass save, the first step of this process is always to get a mass save audit.
Yes. 100%.
To access any of the rebates and incentives, you have to have a mass save audit. But in my own experience, the upgrades that they suggest are usually free. The things that they make you do come very cheaply or free of charge, right? Am I right about that?
Some weatherization, a lot of it can be income based too. So, if you're within a certain income level, you can get a lot of the weatherization work done free or at a reduced cost. It really depends on your utility. So the Mass Save program is funded through the 6 big utilities. So it's really your gas company that's paying for that. Everybody pays into the program on their bill slightly. The state pays into some, the utility pays into some. So obviously your gas company is not they're really the ones who's kind of determining they approve the work for the Mass Save job. So if you're on heating assist and stuff like that, most of that stuff will be covered for no cost. It depends on where you're at with your gas company.
Yeah, okay, so I had mine done a while ago, so maybe it was different, but all they did was put insulation in the attic, and I don't think it cost me anything.
No, it probably did. And some stuff does. It depends on how much in-depth work that you need.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, most of that stuff can be covered, and through whatever they don't cover, I know through like the Energy Saver Home Loan Program would be able to cover some of that stuff, and there's other programs out there. The community action programs, there's one in Greenfield that I use the community action program, and they were able to help cover some of that cost as well.
Right. The only other thing I wanted to ask about is these new, so one thing that's happening this year that's going to be a big deal for heat pump owners is the very much reduced Eversource rate. Electric
Yes.
rate for
That's a
people who-
great mention on that, Lori, and you're absolutely right. So that's a big one. There's been a little bit of information come out about that. I don't unfortunately have a lot of details as far as like how to access that or whatever. As far as I know, because Eversource is essentially paying through the Mass Save program and supplementing, a lot of the funding for this. So they'll know that you are a heat pump customer, for the most part, from what I understand. But it is a very new announcement, and there's not a lot of the fine print details out that I've seen yet. So
Yeah,
that's
what I was
I'm
gonna
hoping
ask
so.
about. If you
Because I know
know-
everybody as an Eversource customer love that. Why am I paying 3 times the delivery charge than I am for the actual cost of? Everybody felt that this year, so I think they're making some adjustments, and that was, I think, the Healy administration worked on with them. So that's going to be a big one too and that's again to incentivize getting off of fossil fuel, not only to meet the town of Amherst sustainability goals, but we have some pretty lofty sustainability goals here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we have a lot of work to do. So, you know, and homes and actually heating and cooling spaces in Massachusetts is about 60% of our greenhouse gas emissions that we do here. So just to make people comfortable in a building, whether that's cool or heating. So it's a big deal.
Okay, so I don't see any attendee questions. So Stephanie, did you have some?
Sure, I have some, and some of these are actually questions from previous presentations. So
Okay.
I think they're fairly common questions. First one, do I have to completely remove my previous fuel source if it's gas, oil, or propane?
Yes. So the same rules applies to Mass Save program, right? So fossil fuel sources will need to be removed, disconnected, and capped in order to qualify. This program rebate, basically, it's like an addition to the Mass Save rebate, and therefore the Mass Save rules will have to be met for the rebate program as well.
Question.
So do they have to be, they don't have to be, they just have to be disconnected though, right? They don't have to be.
Disconnected and capped. Yeah. So the idea
capped.
is you're getting off of gas. So the electric company, you know, you're getting off of that gas. And to qualify for the whole home rebate for Mass Save, you would definitely have to disconnect and remove that.
There are still partial home rebates available. But
There is. Yes,
but-
Lori, there is partial home rebates available. Yes.
So if you don't want to turn off your gas, what that means is you can still get some rebate, but you will not be eligible for the $3,000 available through Amherst because that would have to be part of
Yes.
a whole home.
Yes, that's a
If you
part of the
don't wanna-
whole home.
If you don't want
Yes.
to turn off your gas, you can still
You can.
still do something good for the
Yes, no,
environment.
you can, and you know, and I understand those concerns too for people. But the rebates to do the whole home on top of the Amherst, you know, 3,500 and the whole home rebate is way more generous than the partial home, and it covers much more. So,
Yep.
Will CET still do a manual J for folks who are not doing a whole home or only for the whole home?
that's a great question. That I need to double check on my end because as far as I know, Simon, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, it is my understanding that we are targeting here customers that want to do the whole home
Yes.
heat pump, but it is also likely that we go to a place that they start thinking that they want to do the whole home heat pump, but then they ended up doing just the partial. But we're
Okay.
going to do the design review and the manual J calculation for the whole home, not for a partial.
Right, okay, so if folks want to, I should let folks know then that if they wanted, if you're sure, you should consider a whole home. I want to encourage everybody to do that. But if you are sure you don't want to, for whatever reason, you can contact the Heat Smart Alliance for coaching help and not a full manual J, but a lot of help in getting things installed. Several of us on the ECAC are Heat Smart coaches, so you can contact us and we'll give you a referral if you'd like. So if you don't quite fit into the Amherst program, but you still want some help with trying to decide what to do, Heat Smart Alliance is the place to go.
Right, and the design review and the manual J that we're going to do through this program is for the whole home only.
Right.
Next question, how will I know that the equipment being offered is, quote, right-sized?
Well, that's a great segue there, Stephanie, from the manual J. So, as a part of participating in this program, in order to receive the rebate, there are a couple steps that need to be fulfilled. One of those steps is scheduling that manual J load calculation with CET. So, during that visit, we come out, we determine the home's heating and cooling load, and then we basically share that with the contractor's proposal with us, and then we perform a design review for the equipment. And then we perform the design review based on the manual J load calculation that CET performed. This allows CET to determine if the proposed equipment is right sized or not. So we're already coming into the door with that in mind. That's the whole point of the manual J.
Okay. Next question, will CET help me find a contractor?
You can use any contractor through the Mass Save HPIN, the Heat Pump Seller Network. The contractor has to be on the network in order for you to qualify for Mass Save. So there's lots of great contractors on there, and it's actually a very good process, or very easy process, to get on the Heat Pump Seller Network. So if your favorite contractor is not on that network, it's very simple for them to get on that and apply. So I would encourage them to do that.
What is the estimated timeline for getting a system installed? So assuming they haven't had the
Sure.
weatherization work yet.
Great
So
question,
typically the
Stephanie.
beginning.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Well, that all depends on the contractor, right? So the program is in effect until next year and available for 30 homeowners in Amherst. Like I said, 5 have already received the incentive. We have another 12, I think, or 13 in the works. So it really depends on your contractor and on how fast they can get that going.
Let's see.
Can I add something, Stephanie?
Go for it.
Regarding what contractor do I use? Almost all of us on ECAC, I don't know if all of us have, but many of us on ECAC have done this transition and can talk about our personal experience with contractors. So if the big list that MassSave provides, that CET has access to, and we'll refer you to, is just too overwhelming, you're welcome again to contact us for sort of personal references.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And obviously using somebody local, in Amherst is obviously recommended, helps the local economy, helps your local person. So
Okay.
it's always good to do that.
We can have a list, but we have to make sure that we encourage people that they can
Yes.
use the list as a start, but we're not encouraging a
Yes.
specific contractor. We can't really do that,
Right.
but
You don't want to
we
endorse
can
any one
certainly,
person,
exactly. So we're just
provide-
saying you can use anyone. These are just some people that we know of that you can start with.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we
Perfect.
like to frame that. Just
Yeah.
doing the, making legal people happy.
Love that. Stephanie, what else we got? Any more questions?
Oh yeah, I've got more. So, do the installations come with a service plan for the systems?
That also depends on the contractor you choose. So certain people back up their work, some don't. That's definitely a factor that you want to consider as a homeowner. Is that, is the contractor backing up their work, and for how long?
Yeah, I would encourage customers when they're getting quotes from the contractors to ask that question, particularly because some contractors might include it, some contractors may not. And also if they are comparing quotes, to understand what are the added services that are included in each one so they can compare apples to apples.
That's great. Great advice. And then what is the lifespan of a heat pump system? So if people have invested all this money into a new system, roughly how long will it last?
That's a great question. So it really depends on the user, but the typical lifespan of a heat pump system is about 15 years. But with a proper maintenance, they can last much longer. It's just like any fossil fuel furnace. They typically have a lifespan of 12 years, but if maintained well, they can last up to 20. It just depends on the user. If you take care of it, you clean it, just like anything. If you take care of your stuff, it'll last longer, right? So, if you never clean the filter or you don't do any of the maintenance, then, it's going to decrease the lifespan of the system.
Okay, so this question is my own based on because I myself in my own home am looking to get heat pumps right now. So I'm going to take advantage of your knowledge here. I have solar hot water.
Awesome.
And we have an oil system that we're trying to get off of.
Okay.
Now, we're disconnecting the oil, obviously, but there's the hot water solar tank is still kind of associated with that. So we don't, all of our utility cabinet is small. So I've been told that we can't get a heat pump hot water unit in it because it's too small. It won't be enough ventilation. So what do I do?
So I would suggest at that point, there's a lot of really efficient direct, and I'm getting the word wrong, but the direct to heat system that are you can use electric. Lori's dying to jump in here. So you might be able to, there's different systems that you can use for electric to heat your water, but the heat pump water heater is obviously the most efficient. But
I have can I make a specific?
Yeah, please, Lori, jump in.
Please.
I have the same problem, and I have a smart solar assisted heat pump water heater that is the most clever techie thing I've ever seen. It has a separate compressor, but the compressor is inside. The heat exchanger is outside. It has a single black, quote unquote, solar. It doesn't require the sun. It's just a heat exchanger, just a black panel with fluid that runs through it, with refrigerant fluid that runs through it. That's the fluid that heats your hot water. And it exchanges with the outside air. So it does not make your inside air cold.
Yep. There's a bunch of clever systems that are out there too. Andrew, I saw you pop up in here. So you want?
Oh, I was just saying a tankless system.
Yep, tankless. Yep.
Tankless system.
Yeah, as the word you were looking for.
Yeah, tankless. Thanks, Andrew. That's the exact word I was looking for. So, and those are great because you never run out of hot water. But if you're trying to get the absolute most efficient, sounds like Lori, you've got a great setup right there.
I know, Lori, I'll follow up with you separately.
And Simon, you want to jump in?
You had your hand up.
Yeah, and in general, what I want to state out, it's like keeping a big boiler just to heat water, it might not be efficient. So in these cases, when your your hot water system is not compatible anymore with your heating system, so the best way is to find an alternative standalone hot water system that might work for your home
Yeah.
and it is efficient, like the one that Lori just mentioned, or a tankless electric heating system. Those
Yeah.
are great options, but definitely not feasible to keep a big boiler just to do the hot water part of the home.
Totally. Sounds like Lori has the perfect system there. So there's a
Yeah.
bunch out there. That's definitely we're next on my checklist is to get a new water heater at some point. So like that's good to know. So.
Yep.
But we,
Smart
you know,
plan.
and there is a massive rebate on water heaters for heat pump water heaters, by the way. It is a $750 incentive. And if you can install it by December, there is a federal incentive that's still available until the end of the year that you can also get.
And
Um,
it's 2,000 if you get
It
the
is.
smart solar with the solar assist. It's only 1,500 if you just get a heat pump hot water heater.
So that's 2,000 plus 750 from Mass Save. So that
Yeah.
might cover like 80% of the cost of that. Lori, I mean, how much did that cost for you?
Mine, it cost the final price to me was 3,000 or 4,000. It was a little more than putting in a standard system, but I think it was a $6,000 bill or something like that.
Yeah, and most of that was probably labor to install that. So
yeah, and they were doing it for the first time, so
Yeah.
they did a great job. But it was a company that hadn't installed one of these before. There are several companies in the areas now that have installed them. So
Stephanie, any more questions?
Let's see. Do I have anything else? I'm just checking the list here. Well, I guess I did have someone who asked if they could participate in the program if they live in a condominium or apartment.
That's a good question. Simon, you want to jump in on that one?
Yes, we have a general rule. It would depend on the type of condo, but if the condo is individually metered for electricity and it's individually owned, and they don't have a shared attic, they may qualify, but those condos will be revised on a case-by-case basis.
Great.
So I'm just going to leave this up here if anybody wants to take a screenshot. That's the contact information, the website for the program. Obviously, you can call Lori at any time, any hour, and she'll gladly answer any question about it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so that's the the information right there. And if anybody has any further questions, we'll be happy to help you out in any sort of way we can. This is an awesome program. I'm really glad that the town is doing this. I wish more towns in the Commonwealth would also do a similar thing to incentivize people to switch over. So I don't know if there's any other towns that I can think of that is doing a similar thing like this. So Amherst is definitely leading the way.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we can thank our ARPA funding
Yeah.
for
Yes.
this opportunity. So
yes,
I just wanted to give attendees just one more last opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know if in
And
the
there are
presentation
5.
questions, yes, if there are any questions arose for you, please feel free to electronically raise your hand and we can allow you to ask your question. Just want to give you one last opportunity. Okay, I don't think there are any questions.
Well, we really appreciate you having us out to meet with you. I love the town of Amherst. Spent a lot of time in the town of Amherst. I go there multiple times a week. I live in East Hampton, but I'm there all the time. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm really glad that you guys have this program. It's pretty awesome. So
Yep.
thanks.
Rusty, before you go, I want to say one other thing that for the folks who are listening, the manual J that was mentioned several times is a heat load calculation of how much heat your house needs. It's really important to get that right. And every contract you have in will do a cursory job and give you very different answers.
It's very true.
So,
And that's very
very
important,
true.
Lori, to look out for that because this has been going back to the misconceptions. There's been a lot of contractors that have put systems in that are much bigger than the house
Too
needs,
big,
and
too small.
it's too big. So it's kind of defeating the purpose because you're using more electricity than needed, or too small to where you're having to run it more. And so it's super. I'd probably say that is the most important step is getting a correct manual J and correctly sizing your system, and that's super important. So thank you for stressing that again, Lori.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any questions, then you know where to find us. Thank you again. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their evening, and thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thanks for
Thank you,
joining
everyone.
us.
Bye.
Thank
It's been
you.
Have a
a
good
pleasure
night.
being here
Thank
with
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so now we will finish our ECAC meeting. So ECAC members don't disappear yet. And there will be another public comment at the end if any of the attendees have comments. We're almost done with the meeting. We just have a few more things on the agenda. Let me get back there. A minute. Where is it? Agenda. There we go. Okay, so we were doing staff updates. Did you have any other staff updates?
No, I don't really have anything else at this point.
Okay, ECAC member updates. Anyone have any updates? Okay, items for the next meeting agenda. Any items for the next meeting agenda other than we're going to leave on the Elevate event, the education series planning, the annual report, town manager goals that we didn't do today. What else should we leave on? I'll give another update on the climate bank, but that can just be under regional and state like it is now. Anyone have any items they'd like to add? If not, we are at the public comment. Any final comments from our attendees? There's still 4. If no comments, then let's see, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All in favor? Oh, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, and all in favor, say bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.